Game day.
What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? You're on another episode of Chiefs Focus Live. You got JP, you got Justin, and we got the man that used to play for the Chiefs and as an offensive lineman and protected Joe Montana. We got Ricky Siglar on the show. What's up, Ricky?
What's happening, gentlemen?
Hello, happy to get you on. I appreciate you taking some time to do this.
Hey, not a problem. I appreciate the invite. It's always nice to be invited and welcomed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you were a part of this team for, two different stints, actually. You spent 4 years and then another year, I think, was in 98. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, what have you been doing, man? I guess that's the one question. What have you been doing? What's going on?
Living life.
Yeah.
Just working. Work for the state of Kansas and still active. Part of the Chief Ambassador Group. I don't know if you're familiar with the ambassadors.
Oh yeah.
But made up of it's a great program that the late great Lamar Hunt founded along with Carl Peterson many years ago, and it's former Chief players, and we've got guys from all eras of the Chiefs. We've got the original guys, from the first Super Bowl. We got the Hall of Fame guys and Bobby Bell and Jan Stenrud and everybody in between, and so it's keeps us busy. We're liaisons to the Chiefs organization. We're involved in the community, giving back, raising money for Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and Camp Quality and other charities, and so we that along with my regular life kind of keeps me busy.
That's awesome, man. Mm-hmm. We've had a lot of our friends, especially from the old days, back on the show that are ambassadors. Tim Grunhart and a bunch of different guys that have been on the show. JJ Burden, which I talk to all the time. JJ and I have been friends for 3 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm old, man. But I remember when you played for us. As I said, we were talking prior to the show. I didn't get a chance to speak to you as much as I did everybody else, but you were always such a calm, level-headed guy, and you just didn't seem to. Well, you were kind of a beast on the field, but you didn't take that out on anyone else, it seemed like, and that was always cool. I always thought you just had that nice, calm demeanor about you. That it was a rarity in the NFL back in those days. Most guys were just mad, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some guys had trouble differentiating between, game day and, football being your occupation, profession, and off the field is away from football is totally different. I try not to bring work home or take it anywhere else outside of, the field and the locker room. So,
yeah.
Justin, what you got? Well, one thing I like to do with everyone we come on, I always tell them, I can go on and look up about your career and everything else, which obviously we've done plenty of. But I like to hear, from the man himself, just walk us through, your career, the college process, and just kind of, the whole 9 yards.
Well, for me, I think when people think about guys that played professional sports, especially in the NFL, and the process, they think, the college career, the draft, and I kind of I came in an unconventional way. Went to school, went to JUCO, transferred to San Jose State, and ultimately having been I don't want to say a superstar because I wasn't, but having always from the time I started playing football in Little League, played, been a starter, seen field action, and when I went to state, there was a guy in front of me that was a senior, and I was a better player, but the coach kind of wanted to keep the continuity. But the promise was that, I'm going to get in some action and play. And after like 3 games went by, I didn't get a chance to play. I wanted a red shirt. So I ended up redshirting that, which would have been my junior year. Mm-hmm. And then, not to get into particulars, I had a little bit of an early exit and spent a little time away from football, and met a guy one day just by chance. I was leaving the bank, and called my name. I looked around, I didn't recognize this guy, but he knew who I was. And I wasn't playing football, and I wasn't in school at the time, and offered me an opportunity, said he knew some scouts, and asked if I still, wanted to play. I said, of course I do. So long story short, back then the Shrine Game was held in Palo Alto, California. So the teams would practice at Stanford. And so we went up to Stanford where, there were some scouts, or one particular scout he knew from the Cowboys, and kind of had an impromptu workout, and he liked what he saw, and he flew me to Dallas for a formal tryout. And I ended up signing with Dallas as a free agent, and undrafted, but that's kind of how I got my start. At that time, Tom Landry was still the head coach, and I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I was born and raised there, so the Cowboys was my team. It was kind of always a dream for me to play for the Cowboys, so it was very surreal when I was, in this locker room, and it was the off season, and I was seeing Tom Landry walk through, a guy I'd watched as a kid on TV, and some of the guys were still on the team. Danny White, who was Roger Staubach's backup, and Too Tall Jones, and Tom Rafferty was a center, and Bill Bates. And there was also a lot of guys, and I was like, wow, this was kind of like, am I in dreamland here to actually be in this locker room? So long story short, I think everybody knows the story. Shortly after they fired Landry and brought Jimmy Johnson in, and all that stuff, and I went through, the whole off-season program, what they call OTAs now. They didn't call that, and went through training camp, preseason with the Cowboys, and I ended up getting cut the last cuts. And this was the 89. This was the first year they implemented the practice squad. So I had a great training camp for my line coach, which was Tony Wise, and what limited time I got in the preseason, I did well. And one particular game was against the Broncos up there. And I was like third guy on the depth chart. And all the guys in front of me had gotten hurt early in the game. So I got a chance to play against the Broncos starting defense. And so that was kind of some footage and film that I was able to have that was in my favor. Well, so anyway, I get cut, and I thought, well, they're going to sign me back to the practice squad. They didn't. And so about a week or two later, my agent says, hey, the Raiders want to try you out. And this is when they were in LA. So they flew me in, and I had a tryout with them. And Art Shell was the head coach then. And they were interested in signing me. So my agent called and said, don't sign with them. The 49ers are interested. So I went back to the Bay Area, which I was still partially living there from going to school in San Jose State, and worked out for the 49ers, and they wanted to sign me. And so I just said, whoever's offered, whatever the best deal is. Ended up signing with the Niners, and we went to the Super Bowl that year. It was my rookie year, and had a little stint there with Joe and the guys and all the greats that worked that team, and then ended up coming to Kansas City in '93 as a free agent, and that's kind of in a nutshell how I ended up here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
How I got in the league. So yeah.
Yep.
When you stayed in Kansas, though, right?
I did. I came here. I was at the time I was not engaged yet. Got engaged and ended up getting married, and we had kids. Started having family right away, and realized this is a good place to raise kids. My wife at the time, she's originally from California. That's where I met her. There was a little bit of culture shock for her because she had never lived anywhere else but California. And so she would always say, when your football career is over, I want to move back to California. And so after living here a few years, I had asked the question. I said, you still want to move back to California? And she said, no, I like it here. And so here I stayed, raised my kids here and just had roots here, and this became home.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yep. So, I love the story of you coming to the league because it's unlike the kind of traditional, and those are kind of my favorite stories, especially when they have as much success as you did once you were in the league. So, just kind of running through, what were some of your favorite memories while playing in the league after kind of building up and making it?
It's, once you kind of get over that shock value, the shock of, hey, I'm really here. Because I think most guys will say that it was a childhood dream or a dream early in life to always want to play professional ball. And I think that goes without saying for most professional sports, if not all. You know, it was just very surreal for me. It's like, I'm here. And then, you know, for me, lining up each week and playing against, you know, great players and have had the opportunity to play against Hall of Fame guys like Howie Long twice a year, which sucked. You know, him being a Raider, and I played against Reggie Whites and Kevin Greens and a lot of guys. And it's like, you got to pinch yourself sometimes. It's like, you know, these guys some of these guys are household names and the best at their position. And here I am, you know, lining up across from them and going at it. And so those were some of the fond memories. And then, you know, of course, some of the nail biting games. One that sticks out is season wise is the '93 when I came to Kansas City and they, you know, traded for Joe and that playoff run, you know, playing Pittsburgh at home, you know, which had a great defense and you know, down to the wire, we pull that out and then we go to Houston. Then the Oilers are back in Houston, and just, you know, Buddy Ryan was the defensive coordinator, and he had and talked a lot of trash against us and called us out individually by names and
I remember that
on the paper. And you know, we got trounced by them earlier in the season. They goose egged us, and you know, and that's, you know, they had Warren Moon and just a great offense, great defense, and we went in there and we beat those guys, and you know, to make it to the championship game, which we played in Buffalo. And so, you know, that's just some of the great things, and being able to block for Joe Montana and Marcus Allen, and you know, guys that are Hall of Famers and you know, help accomplish their records. You know, Marcus touchdowns and different things, and the guys I played beside and played with, and you know, of course, we talked about before the show. You know, Derek Thomas, you know, one of the most prolific pass rushers, the duo of Derek and Neil and other guys. And, you know, just being on the sideline when defense was out on the field in Arrowhead, and it's at 3rd and long. And anybody that's been in Arrowhead will know how loud it gets. And you can't hear yourself. So imagine what that opposing team feels like down there on the field. And it's a 3rd down and long. It's a passing situation. Stevie Wonder knows you're going to pass the ball. Anybody that you don't even have to know football to know that it's a passing down, and you have two of the best in the league out there on the edges, and Neil and Derek. Those linemen can't hear, and having played offensive tackle, you know, you can't hear out there on that island. And so, and I would just say, you know, those guys have their ears pinned back, and I would just I wouldn't feel sorry, but I could, you know, for those linemen on the other team, those tackles, like, man, they can't hear, and they, you know, it's a pass down. Derek, Neil knows they're going to pass the ball. Offensive line knows they're going to pass the ball, and I feel bad. You know, I feel bad. I'm sitting there going, what a disadvantage, you know. But that was just part of it, you know. It's just a lot of different memories. I have a lot.
Yeah, it's so funny you said that, man. It's so funny you brought that up, because I was at that Buffalo game, and when Joe got knocked out, JJ and I talk about this all the time. It was almost like a balloon got deflated, you know, and everybody just went, "Oh my God!"
Yeah, it was bad, you know. And he was on the sideline. He was, you know, you knew he had a concussion. He was looking his eyes. And I can't remember. He asked one of the guys, just randomly said, "Do you have my phone number?" We're like, "Oh, Joe's done," you know. And we knew that we're gonna have to play without Joe.
Yeah, that was extremely rough that day. I'll never forget it. And I mean, just the look on everybody's face, and just everybody was just so deflated. I mean, it was just such a depressing thing. But because that was the closest we had gotten in years. I mean, you know, years of even getting close to anything, and then that happened, and I'm like, oh.
Right. And I remember, because I got to Kansas City before they traded for Joe, and when I heard, you know, they were trading for Montana, I told the guys, I said, listen, because the guy, oh man, he washed up. When I said no, I said if anybody can get us to the Super Bowl, I said Joe Money can get us there. He's got some gas left in his tank, and like you said, that was the closest. I think prior to the Chiefs' 2 Super Bowl appearances, they hadn't been to a championship game, and till that year, and hadn't seen one until well after. So yeah, we got close and just came up short. It was a great run, and I'm thankful that I at least had been to one Super Bowl in my career. I tell a former teammate of mine, Mark Collins, who played for the Giants in my second year in San Francisco, because the year before I got there, they had played the Bengals and won. And then my rookie year, we beat Denver down at the Superdome in New Orleans. And then we were one game away from three-peating. And that's when we lost that championship game to the Giants at Candlestick Park. And Mark Collins was on that Giants team, and they ended up going and winning the Super Bowl. I want to say we played Buffalo down in Miami. But I told Mark, I said, man, you got my second Super Bowl ring, So I can't be greedy. I'm thankful. There's guys that played a lot longer than I did, and there's guys in Hall of Fame that don't have those rings. So I'm very blessed to at least have been on a team that went to the Super Bowl and won big time.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Absolutely.
So kind of moving forward to the team now, obviously you're still close with them, especially being an ambassador and everything. I feel like we got to hit on the Juwan Taylor stuff and the false start. What are your thoughts on all of that, all the crazy outbreak from last week?
Well, it's interesting. Just earlier today, I was looking, I think Doug Peterson, his former coach down in Jacksonville, was saying how made a comment that somebody notified the rest, because I guess this is just his MO. He lines up like that, and that's kind of, gets off the ball that way. This is nothing new.
Yeah,
it's been getting away with it, so which makes sense because if this is something he's been flagged for repeatedly or warned about, then he would correct it. But the fact that he's played this way and never had anything said until that crucial part of the game last week lets you know that okay, well, if the NFL officials aren't saying anything, then must not be a big deal. I think, because there were times when I had a formidable pass rusher out there on the edge, I try to give myself an advantage, but there's no way I could have ever lined up that deep, that far back. And there were times I was too far and to get warned by the official, that I'm lined up in the backfield. And so, to move up, they would tell me move up, 66, move up. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this weekend against his old team, if he corrects that or if he continues to do that. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, the offensive line coach hadn't said anything up until that. So,
Well, I think it's because of his arm length, Ricky. His arms are so long, and he's just so. And I get the fact that you get a little bit more strength when you got a little more leverage, and I understand that part. To me, I think they said that the most. He was only about an inch and a half, 2 inches back, maybe at the most, compared to everybody else. And that I didn't think that was that big of a deal, but apparently it is for the players that he's going up against, because his arms are so long that he's able, he gets a little bit more leverage that way. I get that part of it. It makes a little more sense why he did it, I guess I should say. But
no, it makes sense. You got to give yourself any kind of advantage and edge that you possibly can. And we talked about Derek Thomas and those days where before they changed the rules. I don't know if you remember. Derek and Neil were notorious, especially Neil, for doing the flinch to try to draw.
Yeah.
You can't do that anymore. The defense can't draw guys. Make them jump, which is good, because I said they cried about it. Not to digress here, but they cried about it when. Every year, whenever the rules would change, the officials would come in during training camp and talk about the new, rules changes and whatever. And when I came in the league, head slaps were still kind of, still legal. And then they changed that to if you make contact with the defensive guy, if he's going to do like the club move and he makes contact with shoulder pad first and it just happens to slide up, hit the lineman in the head, it's not going to be flagged. And then they outlawed the whole flinch thing, and they cry like babies.
Oh yeah.
And I said, you know what? And you're my teammates, but it's good because you guys have all the advantages on defense.
Mm-hmm.
So they started changing rules a little bit to kind of even the playing field a little bit because defense had a big advantage over the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't fault the guy for, taking every little meter he can take to skirt the edges. If they're not going to call it, then why not do it? And a lot of people that are just, fans were saying, well, you could tell when they're going to run the ball versus pass. Well, unless it's play action, we never try to mask a passing play. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My stance is going to be one that is going to give me an advantage to get out there, especially being on the island, to put myself in the best position to block the prolific pass rushers on a passing down. I don't care if they know it's a pass or not. Now, like I said, if it's play action and we're trying to sell the run, then I'm going to be in my run stance and make it try to sell run, and all that good stuff. But, I saw the comparisons of when it was a running down or when they were running the ball versus passing. And no one's trying to fool anybody,
Right. Yeah.
Well, the one thing I will say, I remember that, the flinch. And I think a lot of that had to do with fear. Look, man, Neil and Derek were that was just the dynamic duo of that era. And they put a lot of fear, especially in like John Elway. John Elway absolutely hated Derek Thomas. He hated it.
Yeah.
And, it was just one of those things to where, they would come out and everybody would say hi to each other. And he would just walk by Derek like, you know what? I don't even look at you. Because he gave him so much flack and so much trouble over the years. It was insane. I would giggle. I'd stand on the sidelines and giggle like a schoolgirl sometimes, just from the things that he did, because he was such a technique-driven player.
Right.
And I used to, the one thing he used to tell me all the time, he was big into Bruce Lee. And I used to tell people this story all the time. He would watch Bruce Lee. Strangely enough, Ricky, I played baseball and I got injured, and I played for the Royals, got injured. And I was in the locker room with Frank White actually brought me to a football game because I was kind of going down a dark path and I didn't know what I was going to do with my career. And he brought me to a football game. And I ended up in the locker room with J.J. Burden, Neil Smith, Derek Thomas, all these guys. And Derek he was sitting there, and I said, JJ had talked to me about a few things about my injury and said something that's stuck with me all these years. I mean, it's been 30 some odd years, but Derek was sitting there and I said, hey, Derek, I said, by the way, I said, I got this crazy ass fan in my neighborhood of yours. And he says, oh yeah, why you say that? And I said, well, every year at Christmas, he puts the number 58 up on his roof in Christmas lights. And he looked at me kind of funny and he goes, where do you live? I said, I live over in the Cliffs. He said, what's your address? And I told him. He goes, fool, that's me. I said, what? I said, what do you mean it's you? I said, you put your own numbers up on your roof at Christmas time? And he goes, yeah, why wouldn't I? And I said, well, wouldn't you think I'd bring all the crazy-ass fans to your house? And he goes, well, you thought I was a crazy-ass fan. I said, wow, I never really thought about it like that. And then, honest to God, we hit it off after that, and we were best friends. I mean, we hung out together all the time, and we were, he was one of the main reasons why I was able to, get on the practice field and hang out with everybody and see what you guys did. And that's why I'm so pro player, because I am an ex-athlete, but also it's totally different from being a pitcher to being an NFL player. And I tell people all the time that want to trash these players, until you do it, and until you actually physically watch what they put themselves through on a day in, day out basis to get ready for a season, don't trash anybody, because they made it for a reason. And it was so funny because Derek was like this big Bruce Lee guy. And every time we go into the house, the first thing he'd do is turn on Bruce Lee. And I'm thinking, what the hell is his infatuation with Bruce Lee? So he'd make these crazy, weird arm moves just to grab a drink off the coffee table. And I asked him one day, I said, what the hell are you doing, man? He goes, I'm working on my technique.
Wow.
And I went, oh. And we got into this conversation about working out because everybody used to call him lazy. I don't know if you knew, but he didn't like to work out a whole lot.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And I never understood, so one day I asked him, we were sitting in his house, and I said, hey, I said, just out of curiosity, you're, as good as you play, I mean, you're one of the best, if not the best in the league right now. I said, wouldn't you think you'd be a little bit better if you worked out? And he goes, why, do you think I need to? And I said, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just asking, why don't you? And he said, I tried that at Alabama. He said, I worked out 4 days a week, put all this pressure on my body. When it came to the game, I just didn't have the agility. He said, so I learned my technique. And he goes, I can still stay strong, but he always told me speed and technique will outbeat anybody, no matter how strong they are.
Mm-hmm. He's right.
And that's what he went with. And it was so crazy. I mean, we spent so much time watching Bruce Lee. I to this day, I haven't watched another Bruce Lee movie. When I see it pop on, I just turn the channel. Because I think I watched it for 10 years. It was constant Bruce Lee, So
well, thank you for answering. That's I appreciate you sharing that story, and I say that because he was not a practice player.
No.
And we would call it brother in line. Especially later in the week when it gets close to game time. Like Thursdays were our big time heavy days.
Mm-hmm.
We did most of our hitting, drills, especially with Marty, goal line and all that stuff. And we look at Derek and Neil and be like, hey man, brother-in-law make us look good during offensive drills and vice versa. And so Derek, people that watched him playing games and his impact and how prolific he was would think, going with the philosophies that people say, the harder you practice and you practice like you play and all that. That's so untrue, at least when it doesn't apply to him.
Yeah,
because he wasn't one of those guys that just at practice went full bore flying around and it transcribed into game day. He didn't beat his body up. He just kind of, I don't want to say he went through the motions, but he kind of went through the motions.
Mm-hmm. I'll say it. He did. He went through the motions. I mean, it's what he did.
But he was one of the guys that could do that and then but turn it up the notches he needed to turn it up to on game day and be the impact player he was.
Absolutely.
He was one of the few guys, and not everyone could do that. Some guys you got to practice hard and all that stuff, and you got to go full bore. And he just wasn't one of those guys. But the proof was in the pudding on game day. He would show up and he made his impact player.
Yeah. That's just how he just, I don't know. I was pretty blown away that a guy that, again, like you said, I mean, when it came down to Thursdays, he just was just there. I mean, it wasn't like he was really putting anything into anything. Sometimes he wouldn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And Marty let it happen because he knew that come Sunday, he'd be just fine.
Well, and Marty, there, that was, I want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, that was Marty and Carl's first pick, I think, together as
yes.
a head coach and a GM. In the first round was Derek.
Yep.
And their sentiment for him would be transcend just as a player. He was, everyone will tell you, he was like a son to both of them.
Absolutely. Especially to Marty.
Yeah, to Marty, and really could do no wrong.
Yeah.
And I mean, if Derek went out to practice in flip-flops, I don't think Marty would, he might say something, but it wouldn't go past that. So, Derek
right.
he got more love than anybody else.
I know, and that caused a little bit of animosity to some degree, especially with some of the newer players that came in, and Marty did. I mean, look, he was a son to him. I mean, he really was. He was his, in his mind, he was his son. Marty used to tell me that's my son right there, And
yeah.
In fact, when that battery incident happened, and I popped that guy in the forehead, Marty, he said his first words were, he goes, "Jesus, you're going to go to jail." And I said, "Hey, man, they could have killed us. What about those guys?" And he goes, "I understand, but no, man." And he was all freaked out that I was going to jail. And Derek just looked at me because you're freaking crazy. And I said, "You know what? The hell with those guys, man. They stopped the game. I mean, it was kind of insane. And there was about 200 batteries they threw that day. And they came with their pockets packed. And they did come down to arrest me. But I got out of it. And Carl didn't like me.
Yeah.
Carl didn't like a lot of people, and I think a lot of people didn't like Carl at the time, but I was lucky enough that Lamar did like me. So I was able to stick around, and in fact, I got a little bit of, I got called into Carl's office when that happened. He was about ready to launch me out of Arrowhead and never let me come back to a game. And when Lamar walked by, he said, "Hey, come here. if you don't mind. He said, can you talk about this battery incident? And he goes, what do you want to talk about? And he said, well, he hit that guy and, he shouldn't have done that. And he goes, well, he was just protecting the players and everybody else on the field. He goes, I don't think he did anything wrong. Boy, that just set Carl over the edge. He hated me after that point. He wouldn't even look at me he would not look at me, but he couldn't throw me out. So I was a pretty happy guy because I couldn't get tossed. So, I was like, hey, but yeah, I was a young kid and wasn't thinking, I just saw Derek go buckle forward and that was just, kind of what happened. But go ahead, Justin. I know you got some more questions, brother.
Well, I mean, we're kind of fast forward a little bit. Obviously, we really enjoy talking about these old times, but we hit on Juwan Taylor a little bit. I got to ask, too, probably someone who knows a little bit more about the position and stuff, obviously. What kind of mental warfare goes into this next week, especially after a week like that with all the penalties? And do you think there's a chance he's too focused on, not making those mistakes to where he almost gets beat occasionally at first?
No, I don't think. If he's a professional like I believe he is, and the rest of the guys are, that doesn't live in your head. You move forward. You do whatever you need. I'm sure Andy has something to say, and his line coach, and he'll be more conscientious of it. But I don't think it's something that'll handicap him to the point where they say, I'm worried about getting beat, or I do this because I'm not completely secure with my technique or my abilities. I just think every guy kind of crafts his own means and methods of playing and what comfort level and find a niche in what you need to do to be successful. So it's not like they're making him alter his technique or his whole complete game changes, his stance or I think he'll be fine. And plus he's going up against his old team and so I don't think you'll see any drop off or changes because of it.
Do you think we can expect the defense to maybe put a little bit more pressure on him early though, to test if he'll stay solid?
Well, I wouldn't put it past them. I know that when my first 2 years with the Chiefs, my line coach was Alex Gibbs, great coach, God rest his soul. He was with Denver, and after he left the Kansas City, and I know that he tried to pick on me a little bit. Alfred Williams and some of their guys come after me up there. It was part of their game plan. So I wouldn't be surprised if that is something they try. Like I said, we'll have to wait and see. I don't know. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do.
Yeah, given the fact that's his old coach, and
Yeah, well, they know all his nuances, and they know all the ins and outs of this guy. So his weaknesses, his strengths. So I'm sure they'll try to exploit him in some way somehow. Who knows? They watch film, and they'll pick every guy and situation of which they feel like they may be able to exploit or take advantage of. So, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they have some packages in there to try to test him early or test him the whole game.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's the one thing we used to call. We used to say this all the time. If you play golf, and I don't know if you do or not, but
I do. I try.
Me too.
I used to be decent, but I'm not good. I can't do it anymore. 34 broken bones and a broken back. I can't do much anymore, but like that. But it's like a golf swing. If you have a bad one and it's the first hole, and you tee off and you shank it to the right, if you let that golf swing stay in your head, you're done for 18 holes. You might as well just pick it up. And that's the one thing that my old coaches used to, my managers and my coaches and everybody used to teach me. And in fact, Marty used to actually use a couple of different analogies that were similar to that. And I used to love to listen to Marty talk, but it's just one of those things that if you're a professional, like you said, you let that go, you move forward, and you just, you go about your game the way you go about it. And I think he will. I think he's okay.
Yeah, he's fine. He's fine. It's not something that was causing problems the entire game or anything like that. And you got to remember, it's the first game of the season. He's on a new team, new system. There's a lot of variables in there that you got to throw in there and take into consideration. There's chemistry. I remember coming here, Will Shields got drafted. He was a rookie, and I was a young guy. Didn't have a lot of game experience. Joining three veteran guys and all Zott and Grunhard.
Yeah.
You know, and there's no other position on the football field that have to have chemistry like the offensive line.
Mm.
You know, D line is one thing. They're kind of a bunch of individual guys thrown together. Yeah, they have assignments and things they need to do, but you know, they're looking, you know, tackles, sacks. Offensive line, we have to gel and play together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we have
God,
to.
I've been waiting for
you know,
somebody to say that.
Well, it's like the Rockettes, you know, they get up there and they're in sync, and the routine is flawless. You got to see that they're all in sync, and whatever. If one's off, it messes up the whole thing. And so, you know, we've got some new pieces in our line this year that they didn't have last year and year before. So you got two guys on the edge that are new. We're playing in a new system, playing, you know, they're playing with the greatest quarterback right now of our time, and some other great guys, but they're playing in a new system. So it's going to take a little bit of time for them to gel and to get some comfort level going there. And, you know, I know from a fan standpoint, fans tend to want to kind of pick things apart if they don't go the way they should.
Yeah.
All their free agent acquisition, they paid them all the money, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, okay, just relax. First game of the season. Give it some time. It's a long season.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. You know, they're not rookies, and it'll be good.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that as time goes on during the season, we'll see better play out of them. Hopefully, it's not guaranteed, but I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we feel about, you know, like Tony. I mean, everybody gave him, you know, it's hard because, you know, given the fact that we do what we do, you know, I made this a company a couple of years ago, and we built this up fairly well, and we've got a pretty good following, and we listen. You know, social media is kind of a necessary evil for us.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to listen to all the trash talking and the people, you know, talking about Tony and the drops and, you know, things of that nature. But this is not a guy that is known for drops. Okay, he's not somebody that is known for that. I mean, if anything, he was known for having soft tissue injuries.
Yeah,
because they didn't have the greatest medical staff in New York. So, you know, he came out and he owned it, and I think he's going to be better for it. He didn't have a training camp. He didn't have a preseason. So it's going to happen. And what I like about Andy, and I don't know, I'd like to get your input on this. You know, Andy reminds me to some degree of Marty. Marty wouldn't go as far with trying to give a player more, you know, I guess multiple chances. If they were having a bad game, he would pull them, sit them, and then put somebody else in and rotate them out, in and out. Where Andy would just go right back to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we might see that this week, where Tony's out on the field, and they want to keep his confidence level up, because if you take him out and you know, the one thing you can't do is pull a guy and say, you know what, sorry, you had a bad game. Now you're 7th on the depth chart. You know, you can't do that. You got to give these guys the confidence, you know, to keep going and to perfect their craft. What do you think?
And I agree with you. I think what happens is, you see this kind of across the league with coaches. If guys get in there and, like, say they have a couple fumbles and they mess up, they kind of get sat, you know, but then they get put back in. I want to say Sky Moore, you know, he had his issues and punch and stuff. And coaches know that there's a fine line, because it is, in spite of what a lot of people might think, thinking it's probably 90% a physical game. It is a physical game, but it's more mental.
Mm-hmm.
And it's essential that guys keep their mental acuity, that they keep their confidence. And believe me, it sure haunted him from the time he dropped the first one to the other ones, to after the game, to during the week, you know, but he's got to, like, overcome it. He owned it, like he said, but it can't be something that handicaps him to the point now. Because I've seen guys lose confidence and they start dropping. Guys with sure hands, and we can go back in time, and I don't have the greatest memory, but there's some Hall of Fame guys who, you know, went through their little periods of, you know, having the dropsies, or guys that were great running backs that kind of went to a period of fumbling the ball, or markers, whatever. And back in the day, Freeman McNeil's, you know, they go through this, and it'll wreak havoc if you allow it to on your psyche, on your mind. And it's like, so I know Andy understands this. I'm sure they worked on it. You know, the social media thing, I'm kind of heavy on it, and I made a post that all of the Chiefs receivers need to hit the jugs machine after practice at least 1,000 reps apiece, because he wasn't the only one that dropped passes. That
No, he wasn't.
At that level, now you're professional. You're paid a lot of money to play this game, and you're the elite of the elite. You're the guys that made it from college to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And your job is to catch the football if thrown to you if you're a receiver, correct?
Yep.
And not all passes are going to be pretty. They're not all going to just hit you dead in the hands. I had a coach in high school. I played tight end. And his philosophy was, if you touch it, you catch it. He didn't care if it was your pinky, your fingernail. If you touch the ball, you catch it.
Yep.
And, so there were some passes. They weren't ideal passes in some of the cases. Some might be a little high or whatever. But when you're professional, that's what sets you apart from other guys, is you make the catches that you're supposed to make, but you make the catch that you're not supposed to make.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, I know that, I'm sure, Patrick backed him up. He Mia Culpa, Tony Mia Culpa, the drops and owned it. And we'll see a better player. We saw him last season contribute quite a bit, being a guy that they acquired and not having a lot of time in the system, showing a lot of promise and ability. And so, he will come through. They'll throw the ball to him. He'll catch the ball. And we'll move on. And hopefully he'll make a lot of contributions this season. We have a young receiving core. We don't have a lot of veteran presence outside of Scanlon and Travis, and Justin. So we got some young guys, and so there's going to be some growing pains with the younger guys. But everyone starts somewhere. But
let me ask you really quick. I just want one. I've been talking about this because I've been around it for so long, and everybody's there was a lot of rhetoric going around about Patrick Mahomes didn't have his security blanket with Kelsey not being out there. Mahomes has put up 40 points without Kelsey and Tyreek at the same time. So it's not a matter of that. What I feel like, and you tell me if I'm wrong, when you have a young wide receiver core that is really feeling good about themselves to a degree because they're out there working out with Travis Kelsey, they've got that, and in my opinion, that was their security blanket. And then when you take that guy away, then the pressure is all on them. And I think sometimes that gets into their minds more than it does the quarterback because, they know that the comfortability levels there, given the fact that he's out on the field, they feel a little bit more at ease. Not that they're trying less, but they know that he's there. And to me, I felt like that played a part in how some of the miscues as far as running into each other, it seemed like some of them didn't know their routes during the week or during the game, I should say. What do you think? Do you think that, it played a part in that?
Well, I think when you don't have a key piece to your system, be it offense or defense, on the field, in like a Travis Kelsey, he was on the sidelines and coaching up best he could, but when he's there and present in the game, it brings a level of security and confidence in everybody, in your line, in your quarterback, and other receivers. I will say this before I keep further with this point. I did see some other guys step up. Gray he stepped up, and Bell got had a couple, and so guys have to look at it as an opportunity. Yeah. When hey, if I'm the next man up, this is my opportunity to shine. Yeah. And on this stage, this is my chance to shine because this other guy takes all the glory. And so there were some miscues, and like I said, there's younger guys, and there's confusion. And the thing about Kelsey and that chemistry that he's developed with Patrick is that the adjustments when Patrick's on the run or having flushed out of the pocket or something breaks down, he knows how to get in those spots. They just kind of have that frequency like bats, they can't communicate. They can kind of read into each other's mind. And that's just reps and playing together for so long. And it'll come along with these other guys. But, we got young guys that I understand that Andy's playbook's pretty complex. So there's a lot going on mentally. Just making sure they're doing what they're supposed to do, let alone improvising or, this is breaking down. Let me, do this and that and the other.
Go to the second call within that call. Yeah.
That's just a repetition and experience and a time thing that comes along with it. So you will see some of those miscues out of these younger guys. And as time goes on, the confidence of build. I mean, it's nerve wracking. Yeah. Just think about it. You're a first year, second year player, whatever. And it's a primetime game at Arrowhead. You're the world champions and, defending champions. and you're coming out, and there's a lot of butterflies, and there's a lot of things going on, you know, and a lot of nerves and what have you. So a lot of pressure put on yourself by yourself, as well as the team and fans. So, you know, it's I'm kind of glad we got it out of the way.
Yeah.
I made comments all throughout the week and before when we found out we were, you know, when the schedule came out, I said, hey, you know, Lions are a good team. They were ascending last year. They lost some games that they were close, and I think they missed the playoffs by a game or whatever. So they're not scrubs like in the past. You heard of Detroit Lions, you think automatic victory.
Right.
They're a good team, and they came to play. And you know, I feel like we shot ourselves in the foot. We beat ourselves, but they were tough.
Yep.
And certainly, you take away the pick six off the tip and on the hands. You know, it's a different ball game, but. You know, life's, you know, the what ifs just don't.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
What ifs are what ifs. So, you know, got another tough team coming up on the road, and Jacksonville's another team that starting to play well. They've got a good quarterback, and you know, defense well coached. It'll be a challenge to go down there, and especially coming off this disappointing loss. Hopefully the guys will use that as a motivator to go down there and play our brand of football.
Yes. Yep. I 100% agree with you.
Yep.
100% agree. And it seems like they always tend to ramp it up a bit when they have a game. You know, there's been very few that they've just, you know, there was a Colts game that they lost that they shouldn't have lost. And then last year.
Yes.
And then this game that they really shouldn't have lost. And when they do, they come out and they play. It's just almost like flawless to a degree.
Yes, they do. Yeah, they light up the scoreboard and drop a 40 burger and all that good stuff. And you know, and the thing people also have to understand is when you win the Super Bowl, you know, and you're coming into that next season, you got huge targets on you. You got a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
You know, you're you know, it's like being the heavyweight champion. Everybody wants to fight you, and their goal is to beat the champ. You know, and that's the thing. You know, Mahomes is become a risen to a star, to a level of stardom that we haven't seen in a long time, and you know, household name, a celebrity, and all that. He's got great ability, and it's unconventional as a lot of the experts and former quarterbacks say he is. He just has a skill set and a thing. He can do things that are, you know, typical of a quarterback. And he's a competitor, and he's got a, you know, well coached, and you know, people want to knock him off.
Yeah.
You know, I was watching when I was at the game, but you miss a lot when you're at the game. So I watched the NFL Network the whole game again, and you know, I realized that there was that one play he scrambled, and you know, he got the first down. I can't remember what quarter it was, but you know, he's clearly running out of bounds. You see the safety come up, and he didn't hit him, but he came in flying, and he kind of went down low. And I was like, you know, that just unnecessary, guys. He's out of bounds. He's not going to juke and come back in. He's already headed out of bounds. But what's going through these guys' minds? Right. You know, it's like that game last season when the guy hit him out of bounds that ultimately put us in the field goal range. And it's like there's so much hatred that these guys, you wonder if in the back of their heads, like, I just want to get a shot at him. Maybe, you know, maybe I can take him out kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's my fear. We got to keep him protected because now guys are gunning for him. You know, when you become the guy now, people want to take you out.
Yeah. I agree. Justin, what do you got, buddy? I know you got another question.
That's about all I've got. Unless you got anything else, JP.
You know, I don't want to keep him all night long.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I know you're a busy guy. We could.
Busy.
Yep. I was gonna say we could sit.
Have you back on.
Yeah. I was gonna say we could sit and talk old times and new times and everything in between for hours. So we know you're a busy guy. I don't want to keep you too long.
Well, I appreciate enjoy being on the show, and I'm willing to come back on if you have an opportunity. I know you want to get fresh blood and other guys and stuff, but
oh no, yeah, hey, you come back anytime, man. Whenever you want to come back, you come back. And also, by the way, I know you remember Sean Salisbury, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. We were asked to host a Gamecast with Sean Salisbury, on his platform called PSF. We are doing that every week. We do live game, basically just kind of like a Manning cast, but we would love to have you jump on and do a game with us, man. That would be phenomenal.
Well, yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to do that. Schedule it when I have the availability. I'd love to do that.
Cool. Well, that sounds good, man.
That would be
we will
awesome.
definitely get in contact with you, and we'll do that. And it would be great to have you on. But we really appreciate you joining, and we don't want to keep you all night because we know you are busy. But any score predictions before you go this week?
I'll be honest with you. I used to have a podcast I did with a guy a couple years ago, and he gave his game score predictions, and I said, that's the one thing I never did was give score predictions. So I just say, not to use a hated rival's former owner's name or saying, but just win, baby. So I believe we'll win, and that's as much as I can give you. I don't have any score predictions, but you certainly can tell me what you think it's going to be.
I like it. We'll take that.
Yeah, we'll take that. I mean, I honestly think we both threw out our score predictions. One was, what was yours, Justin?
I think I had a 31-20.
And I think I went 30. If I remember right, I went 36-24, if I'm not mistaken. And I feel like the Chiefs are going to come back with a redemption game and just go all out. I do feel like Doug Peterson is one of the better coaches in the NFL, and he's really coached this team up. And Lawrence has really come on strong, so we'll just have to see. But he's got a lot of weapons down there. But we also have a very young, very talented secondary.
We do. Very young. This is a game that I'm not worried about offense. I think I just want our defense to step up. I don't want to go back to the big break.
Yeah.
Where it's like a lot of yards and tries, but they end up field goals. But defense. Defense has a great outing. I think defense have a good outing, we'll be fine.
Yep, I agree. Well, we really appreciate you coming on, man, and we will definitely have you come on for the Gamecast and on our show anytime you feel like talking football. Please come on. We'd love to have you on, man.
I appreciate it, guys.
Yep. Thank you. We'll be talking to you soon.
Have a good one.
You too.
Have a good one.
Bye.
I think as Mike started, I think he probably had earbuds and it was starting to go out there towards the end. But it was nice to have him on. And
Yeah,
I tell you, I got a bulldog that will not stop barking. I think it's age. I don't know if you can hear her or not, but she barks at the wind. But anyway, it was nice to have him on.
Yeah, it was.
He knows football very well,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be nice to have him on the Gamecast with us.
Yep, it will.
Yeah.
So if you haven't already, go get that PSF app and stay tuned.
Yes, definitely. Well, Justin, I don't think we got anything else, but we appreciate him for jumping on, and we will have more guests coming soon.
Yes, sir. Go Chiefs.
Thank you very much, brother.
Thank you.
Peace out, everybody.